Solve New York. How's everyone doing? Good. Everyone having a good Solve session? Yeah, for the most part?
Yes.
Very informative, very helpful, very fanatic. Okay, if you're having a great Solve session, do me a favor. If you see some rackers running around wearing all black with the racker staff on the back, that's our events team. They're some of the most hardest working, awesome rackers we have within our organization. Tell them thank you. I know they would appreciate it, and I would appreciate it. Now, speaking of awesome rackers, Matt and I are going to talk to you about two topics which, based on the conversations we've seen on stage and in the Solutions Pavilion, seem to be top of mind for a lot of our customers. And it certainly is for us because we work very closely with our customers. And that's security and scalability. So a little about us. My name's Joseph Palumbo. I've been at Rackspace for about 6.5 years. During most of my career, my focus has been on product education. And if you ask me what I do, I would say on any given day, I spend half of my day teaching customers how to use our products, and the other half learning how to use our products from them. Currently, or probably most currently, I've been focusing a lot on product marketing for the Rackspace networking portfolio. One of our marquee products there is something called Rack Connect, which we're going to talk about. And if I look familiar and you're an existing Rackspace customer, it's because I'm the guy in the welcome video. So if you've signed up for the Rackspace Cloud and you've watched the video, that was me. So I hope that was worth it.
Awesome. And my name is Matt Shover. I am the senior manager for Rack Connect. I lead the Rack Connect team. I've been part of the Rack Connect team for about 3 years now, and I've been at Rackspace overall for about 8 years. I have a background mostly in system administration, a little bit of QA, and IT as well. My mission, what I get to live and breathe every day, is hybrid cloud, especially with Rack Connect. Recently, it's been a few months, we released our latest offering of Rack Connect. It's called Rack Connect 3, and I'm really excited to talk about it and tell you guys some of the features with Rack Connect as well.
So I love events like this because I get to talk face-to-face to customers. But to be honest, Matt and I are very lucky at Rackspace. We talk to customers all the time. And when we're talking to our customers, and they're specifically some of our fastest growing, most security-conscious customers, inevitably, the conversation is going to focus on two things: security and scalability. Seems to be some of the two most difficult challenges that our customers are trying to solve. And fortunately, at Rackspace, we tend to be kind of experts at this. And almost always, the answer is going to be somehow related to something called the hybrid cloud. And this allows our customers to achieve tremendous scalability while still maintaining a very secure posture within their IT layer. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So first of all, what is hybrid cloud? So I think if you ask a couple of different people, you're going to get a couple different answers. Traditionally, a lot of people think of the hybrid cloud as simply combining public and private cloud. And I'm not going to say that answer is wrong, but since Matt and I work very closely with defining the hybrid cloud, how it exists at Rackspace, and that definition is very much driven by our customer needs, we believe it's something more than that, and it's still evolving. And ultimately what it is, it's the connective tissue that lets multiple platforms securely and rapidly pass information to each other across different platforms and, of course, different geographies. And these platforms can include public cloud, private cloud, physical servers, could be different data centers, different regions, and in some cases even different service providers. So it's very dynamic, gives our customers a ton of options. An analogy that we like to use when talking about the hybrid cloud is, I'm sure a lot of you out there are leaders within your own organization, leaders within the IT industry, and your job amongst managing technology is managing people, managing teams. So you want to get your teams, your people, in the best environment in which they're going to succeed and grow. And ultimately, that means getting them, in some cases, just physically in the right part of the building. This is Leadership 101. So when we solve our customer problems, even though Matt and I deal with a lot of cutting-edge technology, we didn't really look forward. We just kind of took a page from some of the oldest leadership practices in the book. And we look at your workloads almost like they're people, like they're organizations or teams that have a job to do in order to make your application work and your IT layer functional. So the way that you have cubicles, conference rooms, remote workers, things of that nature, and you put your teams in these environments where they're going to succeed and grow, we simply look at the platforms available to us that make up the hybrid cloud as spaces in which we can put teams, in this case workloads. They're going to be secure and they're going to be optimized for performance and for growth. And to talk a little bit more about those parts and pieces, we're going to have Matt Shover.
Awesome. Thanks, Joseph. Hey, so one of the things Joseph talked about is we have different really areas in the office that we can have employees sit. They can sit maybe in a private office, they could sit maybe as part of a cube, we could do an offsite hotel type option. There's all sorts of options that we have there. This is going to be analogous to what we have for hybrid cloud. There's going to be trade-offs when you're sitting in a private office. It may be awesome for something like privacy, but it may not be the most space-efficient option. So really what we want to do is go through and kind of break that down for public or for all the three major components to make a hybrid cloud. That's going to include public cloud, private cloud, and physical servers. And I really just kind of want to kind of share our insights and our knowledge on what we think the limitations of each of these are so that you guys can make educated decisions on these. So we first start with public cloud and the value that public cloud provides. First, from a cost perspective, it's pay-as-you-go, it's utility billing. And kind of a quick show of hands, how many people are actually using public cloud today? How many people are using public cloud at Rackspace? Okay, not too many hands went down, so awesome. The public cloud is going to be ideal from a cost perspective for non-persistent workloads. So there was a speaker earlier for Mark Cuban, and talking about kind of the Shark Tank moment when that comes up, right? So we're talking about bursting. We have a lot of customers that will burst around marketing campaigns, stuff like that. Public cloud is built for that. It's fantastic. It can also be cost effective for persistent workloads, assuming that they're sized correctly. So if you think about a small application and you have the option of hosting it on a large server or a correctly sized smaller virtual server, it can be very cost effective there as well. And you'll find that kind of the recurrent theme is cost. I can't say this one is better or worse. It very much depends on how you use it. When we talk about speed of delivery, this is really the bread and butter of public cloud. It's near instant and it's near infinite scalability. You're not concerned about capacity planning for hardware. That's somebody else's problem. That's our problem as the service provider. Your job is just to go through and use an API, when we talk about the elastic part, to spin servers up and spin servers down, and it can happen in seconds or minutes. So there's some fantastic stuff there. Lastly, from the efficiency perspective, because this is infrastructure as a service, you can be more efficient. You're not having to deal with all the lower levels of hardware and how do you run power and RAID controllers and all that kind of stuff. You just have the bits on top of the operating system, and when you use it in concert with something like configuration management, Puppet or Chef, you're talking about servers coming up in minutes, fully configured, rather than the weeks or months that it used to take. On the limitation side, it can be variable or unpredictable costs because it is utility billing, and that may be a deal breaker for some budgets. From a security and compliance perspective, there are a couple challenges there. It is multi-tenant in nature, and it does call for some non-traditional security measures as well. When we talk about enterprise customers and some of the needs that they have, one of them is integration with identity and access management. That means if you have an employee that leaves your company, how many systems do you need to actually remove them from? So I think over the next few months, we're going to hear more and more about things like federated identity management, and really looking forward to having some of those conversations. And the other thing is traditional policies may be a barrier. So you have certain people at companies, kind of these long in the tooth, old school companies. Actually, I shouldn't say that, old school companies. And you will be going rogue by trying to spin up in the cloud. It's like Jack Bauer in 24, going rogue if you go up and spin something up. So that can actually be a barrier when we talk about traditional policies there. And then lastly, there is some specialization required to move into the public cloud, actually migrating servers and migrating workloads in there, as well as rewriting applications in some cases to make up for some of the lack of fault tolerance that may be there in the infrastructure. Okay, private cloud. How many people are using private cloud today? Awesome, awesome. How many hosting private cloud at Rackspace, by the way? Okay, awesome. From a cost perspective, for persistent workloads, very cost effective, as long as it's going to be sized correctly, and we'll talk a bit more about that on the next slide. Speed of delivery and ease of scale, as long as you have the underlying hardware available, it's instant and it's awesome. From a security and compliance perspective, it's going to be more compliance friendly because you own the entire private cloud. Because of that, it's easier for you to integrate with things like identity and access controls because you actually own the access layer of the private cloud. And then just because it's single tenant clouds, it's going to be a little more, like I said, compliance and security friendly there. Okay, some limitations of private cloud. Cost, it is a higher initial outlay. So this is going to be in stark contrast to public cloud, where it's the pay-as-you-go or the utility billing model. Because you have to build for the peak, you're probably going to have some unused capacity. So that's something to kind of take into account there. On the scalability side, you still have to make sure that you have underlying hardware available. So there is some capacity management concern there. There is going to be some administration overhead as well. And then there is going to be a very small performance hit, especially with kind of modern virtualization options associated with virtualization itself. Okay, kind of the last group here is going to be physical servers and the value there. From a cost perspective, a lot of people overlook this, but physical servers can be extremely cost effective if they're sized correctly, especially for persistent workloads. I think in terms of infrastructure being solid, it is still the gold standard for uptime and reliability, and it's very customizable, and you can build it to the exact purpose that you need. From a security and compliance perspective, this is the old school stuff, right? It's going to be a known quantity for a lot of auditors. You can do custom intrusion detection systems, web application firewalls, whatever you want to bring into it. Again, kind of that custom theme that we talk about. And then lastly, performance. You know exactly what you're going to get. There's no virtualization overhead. It's very predictable. Limitations there. It's slow to provision. These are the servers that led us to want to use the cloud in the first place. Sometimes it can take, especially inside of some organizations, weeks or months to actually get these things through the process and up. From a cost perspective, they do need to be sized and utilized correctly. If you have a physical server and it's at 5% of capacity, that's just not going to be as cost effective as one of its virtual counterparts. And then the last part is going to be around management. If you're running it inside your organization, you're responsible for the entire server. So you don't get the same benefits that you get with infrastructure as a service. I do have an asterisk here that I want to point out. We do have an offering at Rackspace called On Metal. And if you guys have not yet been out to the booth to talk to Thomas, our product manager for On Metal, highly recommend you do if you're interested in the product. What's really cool about On Metal is it gives us a lot of the same benefits that we get with physical servers coupled with that in cloud. So pretty fantastic stuff there. If you're interested, would be happy to answer questions about it, or like I said, visit the booth outside with Thomas.
Thanks, sir. So Matt went over the parts of the hybrid cloud, and I can only imagine that there's a lot of IT managers out there when they're trying to figure out their scalability strategy while maintaining security, while maintaining a bunch of other requirements for their IT layer, that they kind of like lay awake at night just thinking, kind of going pros and cons with each one of those. And a lot of the questions that I get ultimately when I talk to customers is hey, Palumbo, which one do I choose? What's the right fit for me? And when talking about the hybrid cloud, the strength is not what it gives you. The strength about the hybrid cloud is what it takes away. It takes away the need to choose a single platform by giving you the ability to put all of those platforms together into a single configuration where it can securely pass data back and forth, pass workloads, add services, utilize APIs, things of that nature. That's probably one of the strongest things that our customers see when they're talking about RackConnect and the hybrid cloud, this fully managed connectivity solution. And late last year, we introduced another product which adds to the RackConnect portfolio of connectivity solutions called RegionLink. And this even extends configurations beyond the walls of a single Rackspace region here in the US. So this actually just adds another layer to that scalability solution that our customers can enjoy. So it eliminates the need to choose any one of those, puts them all together, lets you maximize the strengths of each one of those applications while designing around, or in some cases, eliminating what weaknesses that they may present to you from an IT standpoint. And I'm sure it kind of goes without saying that that putting all these together, stringing these together, really is a tremendous tool and strategy when overcoming a lot of cloud security and compliance challenges. And it really, at the end of the day, just gives you more options to sit down as an IT manager, IT decision maker, an application builder, an application hoster. What's the right environment? Well, the right environment can be everything. Talking a little bit about scalability. So scalability is something that I really enjoy talking about. I've probably spent the majority of my time at Rackspace working in and around the cloud, the public cloud. Spent a lot of my time in managed cloud support. And one of the questions that are probably the conversation that we would have most often was about scalability. And I have some pretty strong thoughts about scalability I'd like to share with you, because they kind of go against the grain, I think, of what some of our customers think or feel about scalability. So first and foremost, I encourage you to not think about scalability in terms of your architecture. A lot of folks think about it just in terms of what happens inside their data center. They're going to add more servers, going to add more resources. Yeah, probably. But I really encourage you, when thinking about strategy, when you think of scalability, think about how many more users you're going to be able to facilitate. Think about the user experience. The other thing is, when you do eventually look inside of your data center walls or your hosting environment, scalability is way more than just buying servers. And I'm sure there's a lot of salespeople and a lot of our competitors would love for you to think that scalability is a problem that you can solve simply by signing a large check and just saying, put more servers, throw more compute at it. That can solve it, but it's typically a very inefficient solution to an elegant problem. And really what it comes down to is expertise, experience, knowing how to reverse engineer the workloads that comprise your IT layer and intelligently distributing those across multiple resource pockets, compute, storage, network devices, be it physical, be it virtual. Expertise really is the answer to scalability. And when I talk about expertise, it's not because we've done this 100 times, it's because we look at data. We base our scalability on the insights that we gather from monitoring infrastructure and applications. And at the end of the day, what really delights our customers is when we sit down to try to solve their scalability needs, it typically is a playbook or a strategy that is collaborated and agreed upon between IT managers on their side, their developers, and of course their operations team, be it within their organization and of course their operations team, which expands into Rackspace. And so it's a strategy that's really collaborated on and is bought in by everybody involved. And that's a tremendous strength when you're looking at how to solve scalability while maintaining strategy. So how does the hybrid cloud help scale application? Like in a nutshell, it just gives you more options to scale across the hybrid cloud. You can scale at any point, maximizing strengths, minimizing weaknesses. It allows you to easily optimize the distribution of your workloads. And what we see a lot of customers is when they're not necessarily ready to go all in with the cloud, or they're refactoring their application, it gives them the ability to on-ramp into the cloud, which is to move just the portion of the workload that's experiencing a resource shortage and just move that into the cloud while keeping the rest of their operations either on-prem or on physical servers or wherever they're historically hosting. So it allows our customers to in a very systematic, strategic way, move their workloads into an environment that's going to allow for that scalability without giving up anything that they're used to and that has comprised their IT strategy for the previous 1 or 2 years. So that's what my thoughts on scalability. That's really, I think, kind of my experience. Matt, though, is the expert on security, so we're going to turn it over to him to talk about security.
Awesome, Joseph, thank you very much. So with security, one thing that I kind of want to point out, I think over the last few years, thoughts on security have changed. I think initially when we were kind of talking about or thinking about the early adopter phase of public cloud, there was just a lot of stances and a lot of it was decided by security. That's just not something that we're going to do. And I think that's shifted over time, especially recently with the security group saying, how can we collaborate and how can we actually make this work now? There's other drivers and reasons that we need to go into cloud. So I think security has shifted from a don't do that to how can I help you kind of phase. And I think that's a big shift. So one of the ways that you can kind of think about, maybe a potential frame for thinking about security and making it work for you, is to kind of optimize for the factors that matter most. Is it that it needs to be on demand? Is it optimizing for cost? Is it the burstability stuff? What is it? Do that, see what platform works best for you, and then test security. Don't let security make that initial decision for you. Is there some kind of a compensating control because you're in the multi-tenant cloud now? Is the concern your data? And is a compensating control that you can encrypt that data at rest and get around that? Then awesome. The cool thing about the hybrid cloud is if there is no compensating control, you can just kind of move over in the stack to some sort of a platform that's going to suit you better, and the hybrid cloud's going to enable that. And then lastly, when we think about security in the platform, it's not just the platform, it's also going to be how you connect it. So one of the things that we're really, really excited about is Rackconnect 3. We were able to debut this late last year. We have quite a lot of customers using it already, and the feedback that we've gotten has been tremendous, and I really think it's beat expectations. I'm very, very happy about it. So the first thing about Rackconnect 3 is that it's built on top of cloud networks. And cloud networks are really single-tenant, isolated networks in the cloud. Think of it kind of like a VLAN in the cloud. You're the only customer on that particular network. And with RackConnect 3, we're translating these cloud networks back into literal dedicated VLANs that we'll plug into. In this particular case, it's going to be a firewall. So auditors get, and a lot of customers very easily get the fact that, hey, I get different network segments hanging off of my network device. That's very simple. It's very easy to centrally secure, centrally audit, know exactly where your environment is at. So you can have different segments in the cloud. You can have an app segment or a web segment or a dev or a test segment, and then have maybe a database segment within dedicated, and then maybe have 1 or 2 segments for private cloud, and tie all these things together, and even do things like off-premise with site-to-site VPNs. With the dedicated security constructs that come from being able to have that network device, you can also layer things in like hardware firewalls and have all of the traffic that comes from the internet go through a firewall before it hits your cloud server. You can incorporate load balancers and even share these load balancer pools between cloud and dedicated. And you can incorporate things like web application firewalls or ADSs or even perfect forward secrecy in front of cloud servers. So this greatly increases your security stance in the public cloud, really bringing dedicated-like security constructs into your hybrid cloud. So just kind of a quick recap of RackConnect and what it does. It is our hybrid cloud offering. Kind of what Joseph was saying earlier, it eliminates the need to choose between any single solution when you really might need multiple solutions to solve your problems. It does leverage a network device, so you are going to need a firewall or a couple different load balancer options. It could be the F5 or a Brokit. And lastly, we do have a customer API. So if you want to instantly move cloud servers in and out of load balancer pools, you can do that. Lastly, it's free. So as long as you have the net device, very good stuff there. So Joseph, you kind of talked about some of the infrastructure challenges that some customers bring us. Today we talked about how you can have security and you can have scaling by introducing this concept of kind of having the best of all worlds. Regardless of which challenges that you may have, there's going to be a platform that's going to be best for those, and it really allows us to combine the best of those. So when we look at the true value of hybrid cloud and what it provides, it allows you to connect all of the above. It allows you to achieve multiple objectives and really just kind of go with the platform that best meets your needs based on the workload. Layer on top of that managed cloud, and what the real value of managed cloud is the fact that we have these dedicated specialists that live and breathe this kind of stuff every day. They build hybrid clouds, they troubleshoot all of these things. And in the end, you're taking advantage of our economy of scale. That's saving you time, that's saving you money, and that's enabling you to focus on what your differentiators are and letting us take care of your infrastructure. So when we look at how to build a hybrid cloud, there's really 2 main approaches that we see. The first is a do-it-yourself approach, where you can go through and you can select the platforms that you want. Typically, this is going to involve multiple vendors, and building it and troubleshooting it can be time-consuming and can be problematic, and it can be frustrating. There's also a managed approach with Rackspace, and there's a wide breadth of options. We have the public cloud, we have the private cloud, and we have dedicated, we have enhanced security with RackConnect, and the cool thing is, it's built and supported fanatically, all under one umbrella. It's like we've got your back for all this stuff. So with that, Joseph, I think we have a couple minutes to entertain questions. What questions do you guys have? Yes, sir.
What are options to make smooth migration from RackConnect V2?
Okay, so the question is, what migration options are there from RackConnect 2 to RackConnect 3? Okay, great question. There are 2 options. One exists today, and one is planned. And they're very creatively named Upgrade Process A and Upgrade Process B. So Upgrade Process A enables you to have RackConnect 2 and RackConnect 3 at the same time, but it comes with a couple caveats. The first being that you do need to spin up a second cloud account, and that any new servers that come up on V3 need to be spun up. So you're not going to be able to retain the same public and private IPs that exist today. For customers that don't want to do that, we're designing Upgrade Process B, where you'll be able to keep the same cloud account, and the dev target right now is to be able to keep your IPs as well, and it will be more of a seamless transition. The only caveat that I want to point out is that it's literally talking over a different network now, because we're talking over these cloud networks. So as each cloud server has to detach from one network to the other one, there may be a few seconds of downtime, but that's essentially where we're at. And I'm more than happy to talk to you afterward about migration for anybody else that's interested. More than happy to talk to you about Rack Connect v2 to Rack Connect v3. Yes?
With Rack Connect, what are the performance penalties you incur going with that architecture?
Okay, so the question is, with Rack Connect, what kind of performance penalties are there with going with the architecture? I can tell you that in my personal testing that I've done with Rack Connect 2 and Rack Connect 3, we're looking at low single-digit millisecond latency times, so anywhere between 1 and 5 milliseconds. It's very, very low latency, and that's, of course, going to be on-site or within the same region, i.e. Chicago itself is a region or DFW is a region. Does that answer your question?
To what degree does the actual net device play in that?
As far as introducing latency?
Yes. Or just improved performance?
Yeah, so if we're looking at, this is actually kind of a good segue to talk about something else. The net device itself really doesn't add too much in terms of latency. That would be included with the numbers that I just gave you. We do have the ability to do more bandwidth, though. With Rack Connect 3, we can do up to 10 gig of connectivity. It does require kind of a small special solution that I'm happy to talk about. But default, you can get up to about a gig of connectivity between cloud and dedicated. We have seen a lot of large enterprise customers right after the launch of V3 come to us asking for 10 gig Rack Connect because I think they do view it as a very true enterprise solution, which we're very, very happy to see.
All right.
You mentioned something called the region link. What can that help us do?
Yeah, so Rack Connect Region Link is a product that we recently introduced where within the US right now, you're actually able to pass traffic from one Rackspace region to another Rackspace region with very low latency using the Rackspace backbone. It was introduced, I believe, in September of last year and is currently available right now. And it is one of the first things that we've done to really expand the Rack Connect portfolio. So, folks, I think that's our time. So we want to honor the schedule, but thank you very much, and please enjoy the rest of your Solve event.